残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ青い風が今胸のドアを叩いても私だけをただ見つめて微笑んでるあなたそっとくれるもの求めることに夢中で運命さえまだ知らない痛いけな瞳だけどいつか気づくでしょうその背中には
Hello, and welcome to your uncle's beach house. We're back. It's basically winter, but here we are talking about anime. Jackson, hello.
Hello.
Are you ready for this trip to the winter beach?
No, I'm not ready. Oh, I'm not ready. We haven't been ready for a long... We've been trying to record this episode for like 3 weeks. God has not allowed it.
I mean, we also just weren't enthused, but God also has not allowed it.
Along multiple lines, there have been attempts by the universe to stop us recording this episode. But it's here, I guess.
Yeah.
Please understand.
Yeah. If you don't know, this is the side podcast to the Great Gundam Project, which you do every week. You can find that at patreon.com/mapping, where you're listening to this because it's free on here. Gundam's $1 a month. It goes up every week. We talk about 2 episodes of Gundam. It's a good time. We're usually really positive about Gundam because we like mech shows, despite what you're about to hear for the next hour and a half. Hour. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Yeah. This is the Evangelion episode, as you probably already know, because Cruel Angel's Thesis played at the start.
Oh, it sure did.
It's a good song. You can't
It's
even...
fine. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Of all the things you're going to get down on, the song being bad isn't one of them.
It's weird because, it's so ubiquitous that I have a hard time, appreciating it as, a thing of its own. Someone says Cruel Angel's Thesis, so when I actually see is, the imagery of, the Ava with, the wings opening up and the Tree of Life bullshit and faces and bodies and stuff from the opening.
Is that just this? If someone said, "Hey, the Sailor Moon's opening's good," what would you go? Yes, it is. It's a good song.
Yeah, no,
I mean, just as ubiquitous.
Yeah, I know. Something about the way that Ava has been. A recurring theme of this podcast is going to be the ways in which Ava was presented to me as a cultural artifact in the years since I've seen it for the first time. Have really colored my opinions on Ava.
It sure has.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way this ended up coming about was that I rewatched Ava at the beginning of this year, had a good time, and then you rewatched it recently because Destiny wanted to finish it, and we decided let's do a beach house about that. That'll be fun. Not realizing how much you would really bounce off of basically everything about the show.
I think that's not fair. I enjoy large swaths of this show. I just think in total, my opinion of Ava is that it's a bad thing written by a very bad man, and the people who like it despite all that stuff that they seem to basically ignore in favor of the little bits they do like.
I get it. I feel we'll get into it. Yeah.
We're just gonna play Angel Attack under this entire episode, just looping.
Bum. So let's talk about Shin Godzilla.
We will talk about Shin Godzilla eventually, probably a little bit.
Eventually, yeah.
Because Shin Godzilla is basically the stuff I like about Ava, divorced from all the stuff I don't like about Ava.
It really is.
What
if just an entire movie was people looking at boards and narrating what was happening?
And then marshaling all the forces of society in order to save the world. Which Ava is ostensibly about for like a good chunk of it, and then it kind of forgets about all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got other stuff going on.
Yeah, it's got a lot going on. So let's just get into it. Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yes.
The gospel of the new century.
It's true. I think there's like a quote going around going, it means these things, but Anno picked it because Evangelion sounds complicated.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's an Anno move if there ever was one. Anyway, this is a TV series that was produced by Gainax and Tatsunoko Production, directed by Hideaki Anno, criminal of the century. It was broadcast on TV Tokyo from October of 1995 to March of 1996. It is 26 episodes long. After this, we will talk about the movie. So no movie talk in this segment because we're mostly going to focus on the show because if we don't, this will just be the most depressing episode we've ever made.
We'll do our best because a lot of my feelings are tied up in the rebuilds. We're never going to mention anything at all about those.
We eventually, I've only seen the first two, and it's been since they were new. Eventually, we will cover the rebuilds in a separate episode. That's not going to come up here. So if you're here for our rebuild opinions, you're going to have to wait at least a month, probably like 2 or 3 months, depending on how this goes.
Give you a little time to decompress, forget about all this.
A little bit of time. I don't know. Maybe I'll just forget about Evangelion forever, and we'll never talk about it again.
That will not happen.
Jackson, what's the plot, ostensibly, of Neon Genesis Evangelion?
In the year 2000, there was something called the Second Impact, which learning the truth of is the plot of the show. But basically, a big event happened, half the world's population died, and 15 years later, in the city of Tokyo 3, a boy named Shinji Ikari is summoned there because his dad, who runs Nerve, wants to have him get in the robot, which is an Evangelion, to fight the Angels. The Angels are attacking humanity, these mysterious creatures. There's 18 of them in total, and they need to be fought by Evangelions because conventional weaponry can't do anything because of this thing called the AT field, which only the Evangelions have and the Angels have as well. It makes them completely invulnerable. This ties into the themes later because it's basically about souls and connections between people, blah, blah, blah. The same thing as literally every anime ever made. And that's the plot of the show. He fights the Angels every week. The main plot is Shinji is very sad all the time and has to figure out what's going on with that. There's a lot of psychoanalysis about that, and then a lot of the other plot is Misato, who is Shinji's carer / supervisor / general, having to fight the Angels but also investigate the shady goings on in Nerve because no one really knows what Nerve wants. And then there's 2 separate, even more shady organizations above them, the Instrumentality Project and Sele, and no one knows what they want. So
is that actually how you pronounce it? Because I've always said Seal.
It's Sele.
Okay.
But yes, I think I said Seal as well until I found out how to pronounce it.
Okay. I'm probably going to continue to call it Seal. I apologize. This is a Sirocco thing. I can't deprogram my 14 years of my brain.
I understand. But that's the plot, is he fights the Angels every week, he is very sad, and everyone tries to figure out what the fuck is going on with the actual plot, and no one ever finds out because the answers are all bad and dumb. Especially in the show, there's no answers in the show. There's
the one person who's looking for answers gets murdered, and then the show takes a hard left turn into the world ending, so hard to find answers in that situation.
Yes. So that is basically Evangelion. For those of you who haven't seen it, however many of you, there has to be a few people listening who haven't seen it.
You'd think. But you also should not listen to this if you haven't seen Evangelion.
Yes.
I mean, you know what? If you don't care, go ahead, listen to this. But I don't know what you're going to get out of it by us getting in the weeds of talking about Eva, the things that we like and the things we don't like.
So, I think a good thing to do when discussing this quickly would be to break it down into the 3 parts of the show. Do you think?
Well, okay. The thing that I really want to discuss before we do that is I watched Evangelion and End of Eva all in a weekend when I was in college in late 2004, early 2005. Mm-hmm. I was 18. The show was remarkable. I remember being really blown away by End of Eva specifically, which is funny. But also I remember not I didn't love Eva enough to rewatch it or care that much about it. And this has been my revisit because Jackson likes it, and my partner wanted to watch it. That's really it. Like, it was a good excuse to revisit it. I probably wouldn't have done it if Destiny wasn't interested.
Yeah.
So,
my context is pretty similar. Not similar. It's pretty similar in terms of like I watched it a little bit ago. It was only a few years now, rather than all the way back in 2001. But I watched it. I really latched on to Shinji and like the bits where it's just a sad show about depression. I never liked End of Eva. I remember watching End of Eva and being like, well, this is a joke, right? And everyone was like, yeah, it's a joke. That's why it's good. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Nodding along.
I don't actually think End of Eva is a joke, but we can't talk about that yet.
Yeah, no, but like that was my opinion like years ago, and how I was able to reconcile liking the show. So I think of the two things as very different entities, and I've always been more into the like parts where the show is like sad and empty, and all the bits of like Shinji just looking at a hospital ceiling for hours. It captures like depression stuff very well in a way that very few anime I've ever seen. I haven't seen that much anime, but it's very special about that to me, like because it's not a unique thing in like all of media, but I haven't seen much anime do that stuff, and I understand like how I and a bunch of other people can latch onto this sad boy. And I know that you'd have like the sad boy is not sad in the way that like, you know, it's a very different teenage anxiety situation to you, because you're the school person when it comes to your like favorite teen
sad boy. Yeah,
sounds.
no.
Yeah,
Yes. I need a person so crushed by responsibility that they lash out at the people around them.
Yep. It technically applies to both of them, but in very different ways.
Yeah, there's stuff I like about the Shinji thing. I just don't identify with it, which is like a key to my like lack of affection for Eva in general, I think.
Yeah.
Like I think the Shinji stuff most like, especially in the show, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about the show.
Yes.
Is well done. I like him looking up every day and like, this is the same ceiling or whatever, or this is a different ceiling when he gets hospitalized and stuff. For the first time, the part where he like tries to run away 3 times, and then comes to the same conclusion every single time, I like less, because it usually results in other people getting harmed, and the show doesn't necessarily give those people an outlet to like yell at Shinji the way that they probably should.
Yeah. I think that there's 2 big runs away. When's the third one?
I don't know. I didn't enumerate them. I am just talking about my impressions of this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was going to respond to that, but I think we should just get into like more.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the first third of the show, which is
the show basically breaks down into 3 thirds.
Yes.
And the first third will go like. It starts out with Shinji coming to Tokyo 3, forcing the robot. Then there's the stuff with him and Masato in the first running away, and then Rei kind of comes into the dynamic a bit, and there's the episode where they have to fire the big gun, and then Asuka arrives, and then the dynamic is complete. And that's basically the first bit of the show. It is very straightforward. There aren't any like breakdowns into what's going on behind the scenes. There's like a couple of instrumentality scenes, but they're also like they mention it in episode 1, so you know that they know that they was planning this all along, but they don't tell you anything or do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also very little like the trips inside the minds of the characters. There's not very many like voiceover sequences in terms of like we're inside Shinji's mind now. It's mostly just allows him being in the environment speak for itself. I like that stuff quite a lot. But also the early part of the show is real on its bullshit about how horny it is.
Yeah, so you have 2 like adult women in this show, which is Masato and what's her name? Ritsuko. And the show, sorry, I watched the show like a month ago at this point, and names. The show so often frames them as like just like pinup girls every time they're on screen in a way that I find gross, disgusting, and unconscionable. I don't like, the show is so like into its like self-serious edgelord mech stuff, like, oh, he gets in the Gundam, but the Gundam, he doesn't know how to pilot it, so it gets fucked up and then it bleeds real blood, is basically what episode 2 of Evangelion is. And I get it, like I get the appeal of that, is like, oh, let's really underscore these like mech shows and show what they really be like. But then you have the characters that exist only to like shove their ass and tits in your face every time they're on screen. And I like both these people as characters. The writing around their characters is often, not always, and not in the conclusion, good, but I hate the way in which they're framed every time. There's like one scene in particular where they go to like a conference and then they have like a conversation where they're just like in a it seems like it's like a abandoned restaurant or like no one's in there and it's night. And they're just like draped over the table so their boobs are pressed up and like long shots up their legs, and it's just the most porny shit on earth.
So when I rewatched this, I like went in like with you saying that, and also like I knew Evangelion was always a horny bullshit show, but like when you watch it before you've seen a lot of anime, you often like write that off as, oh, anime, it does this. There's a tendency to be like that.
Yeah.
So I went in knowing, I'm like, okay, how as bad is it going to be? And the thing that I was struck by is that it like really changes episode to episode. Episode 7, which is the Jet Alone episode, is illegal. It's fucking insane. And I like, in theory, like that episode because it's got all the stuff about the like weird bureaucracy and actually delves into the context of the world a bit. And the central relationship is about Misato and Shinji, and like Shinji and Misato have this like closeness because she's able to be kind of like unguarded with him. The way that presents itself and the way every scene in this episode happens and like they deal with these things between these characters is just unconscionably bad. In a show that is sometimes okay about this, it's illegal. Like that episode specifically is so much worse than the others, and there's a few others as well, like the first Ray episode, like that scene where he goes and grabs Ray's boob, like it's bad.
Like the thing they wanted to do with him being like weirded out that she doesn't care about him there, they already did with her like walking out of the shower. They didn't need to do the he falls on top of her bullshit.
Yeah, it's completely meaningless. There's other stuff in episodes that I like as well, like the what's it called, the dancing episode. Is a great. It's one of my favorite episodes of the show. But in that, there's like one of the early shots with Asuka, where she's like, "You have to go sleep over there," but the angle is like you're looking completely down her top in a way that is ridiculous.
I mean, even Asuka Strikes has a whole bit about her getting into the plug suit when she first shows up, and like Shinji looks away, but the camera sure doesn't as she's changing.
Yeah, and then she beats Shinji up because he's like looks again. And it's like, so there's a lot of that tendency, way more than it is a thing that is endemic to a lot of anime and anime culture, and it's like understood to be
a lot of anime culture. But we watch a lot of anime that isn't this.
Yeah, that's my point. Is that having like spread out a bit, I'm like, no, this is just bad, and it's not like a thing we all have to ignore. It just sucks.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because there are moments, even in these episodes, that are really good. I think in that what's it? It must be that dancing episode, because there's the scene with Kaji and Ritsuko where Kaji like starts kind of like flirting with Ritsuko, and Misato's watching, and it's like this very brief glimpse into, oh, maybe you could understand sexuality as a thing that was real because you want to talk about this stuff, right? The show has aspirations of talking about this, and I end up liking the like Kaji stuff a lot. He's one of my favorite characters in the show, but then it will just show everyone's tits for a scene, and it completely undercuts the stuff it's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean the bit with Kaji, Ritsuko, and Misato as like picking up a weird like friendship relationship triangle that existed when they were in college is some of my favorite stuff in this show.
Yeah, it's great.
Both Ritsuko and Misato get really bad character stuff overlaid on top of them later that I really dislike, but this like the stuff in the early and middle parts I think is really good. Like Misato's general, like when she's not portrayed as like the brash like booby lady, when she's just like, I'm gonna take care of this kid because I think it's the right thing to do, and then is like utterly incapable of doing that, when they don't depict that as broad comedy, I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's some of my favorite stuff as well. I understand why, because like, you know, tropes and everything, that Misato has to be the like super glamorous one, that she's so beautiful, but then actually she's secretly not got her shit together. Whoa! I just wish she was a bit more openly not got her shit together. The way the character.
I mean, I wish they gave her more interiority like early on. Yes. They give her a bunch later, but that's when it also gets really bad. So
there's a bit in the middle where it's like it hits the sweet spot.
Yeah. So I suppose we should talk about the middle part of this, which is Asuka's there. There's another trio of Eva pilots. They are just like knocking angels out one after another, despite increasingly ludicrous scenarios in which they have to do that.
This period of the show is like incredible. It
Yeah,
eases up on
this is also the like find out what Nerve's doing Kaji stuff, which is all very good.
towards the back half of it. I feel like
Yes.
that it takes a while to really get going.
Yep.
But yeah, I felt like it does ease off its horny bullshit. It gets way more into the interiority of the characters, and I feel like this sequence basically between episode 13 or whatever, the day Tokyo stood still is the one, and the episode where Shinji is inside the plug. Like, they're basically all pretty great episodes.
Yeah.
I like the show a lot in this period. One of my favorite things about it, especially compared to Gundam, is that I feel like it's incredibly good at structuring episodes around ideas. Like, this is the episode where this happens, and every episode will have like a point, and here's a climax to it. Gundam, it's copying Gundam in a lot of ways, but Gundam is much more concerned with broad ideas and will not necessarily be like, and here's the.
That's also because they don't fight one-off giant monsters with very specific gimmicks every episode of Gundam, right?
Yeah, but the gimmicks are always like, this is a stupid gimmick that ties into whatever character bullshit we're doing this episode.
Yeah.
Like,
but as much as like Ava's not necessarily like a mech show, the angels as the thing that they fight means that they can structure really tight episodes around the specific weirdness of the monster, and that stuff is very cool, and I feel like generally underappreciated when people talk about Ava. I think it's the stuff that works like without reservation pretty much the entire show.
Yeah, like the best moments in the show are like that dancing sequence, or the moment where they fire the big gun, or the moment where
the one for me is the one that's like falling from orbit, and they all have to like race to catch it. I love that one.
It's phenomenal. I think that's because they have to cut out so much in the like movies they did. That's one of the ones they keep in the. You get to see in big, beautiful 2009 animation, and it's very good there as well.
Yeah, that's episode 12, which is one of the best episodes of this show.
Yeah, like any moment where the whole thing is everyone's kind of dysfunctional and bad, and the ending is everyone figures out something about how to relate to each other. That is when Eva is good. That is when it is earnest and the best version of itself.
Yep.
Because I don't like Eva when it's cynical, and then you go, haha, well. Which, yeah, owned, I guess. But I really like this middle section.
Yep.
I like the stuff of like when the car. What's the episode with Misato and her dad? But it's like the middle one of those before it gets into the weird slut shaming you inside your head bullshit.
Yeah, that's way later.
That stuff is terrible. But the middle, like the episode where she's out with Kaji, and she's like kind of depressed and feels weird about this relationship because she's like, you remind me of my dad, but also maybe I didn't hate my dad as much as I thought I did. All these things are like going around her, and they kind of like have this sad but quite
that's episode 20.
That's an incredible episode. And then I like
that's the one where Shinji gets stuck in the Ava, which is maybe the last really good episode of Evangelion.
If I was making Evangelion, I would just put the like Shinji ending in that scene, because it's the same thing. Yep. He is in a thing where he's like, do you want to be in a world where nothing exists? And he goes, no. Like, the same thing happens, and then I would have had that would have made positive changes in people's lives for the rest of the show. That is not what happens.
Yeah, no. Instead, everything goes to hell, and then he's asked the question again and comes to the same conclusion, but with much more like bullshit around it.
Not for him, but for everyone else.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of more like stuff about the middle of the show, because it is.
This is like the dummy plug, and Toji gets in the Ava and just gets ruined and stuff like that.
The dummy plug's okay. It holds up less on a rewatch. So much of that stuff is all about the shock of, oh fuck, this happened.
Yep. The thing for me is, Toji is like a character that's given a really interesting backstory. Like, him punching Shinji is one of the like bravest things anyone does in this show.
Yes.
But once he gets in the Ava and gets like damaged and is in the hospital, he basically is just written entirely out of the show at that point.
You know why that is, do you?
I know in the manga he's just dead. I assume that they meant to like kill him and forgot or whatever, because the end of this show is a mess.
They were not allowed to kill any of the kids.
Oh, okay.
They had a directive not to kill any kids. So, yes, he was meant to be dead. Every time they do that bit again, it's, like, framed as going to be a death. Like, as he dies in the manga.
But I think it would have been really interesting. Like we do a Star Trek show, and that has a kid who gets maimed horribly and has to like deal with it in DS9. If Toji was just like the arc of that character, where he's like the brash one who's like he's providing for his sister, he's like an adult when he shouldn't be, and now he has to deal with being like disabled and struggling to re-identify himself in that. I think that stuff would be really interesting. The show doesn't care about any of that.
Well, my fundamental reason I don't like Ava, for as much as like a thing that's important to me, is that it is entirely unconcerned with dealing with it. It'll get to these big catharsises, and then the next episode will be like, but then it's all shit again. And I'm like, but we could just build from here. And there are times in this show and in the movies and everything where like it gets to points where I'm like, oh, the good thing has happened. Now I guess we'll explore a positive side of this, and it will just flat refuses to.
So like I'm of two minds about this, because so much of the show is centered around Shinji and his headspace. So it makes sense that for Shinji, as like a depressed kid, he's just going to keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. But the show would be better if it showed that the rest of the world could also like grow and move on, and Shinji is trapped in this cycle. But instead, because it's all monolithic about Shinji's brain, the entire world has to bend to his whims, and so everything goes through that same cycle, and it makes the distinction of Shinji's problems and the world's problems meaningless in a way that I don't like.
That is true, but also I don't think Shinji is actually I don't think Shinji has to be as trapped. I would include Shinji in the like way this show treats its cynicism. Like, I think
for
Shinji
sure. Like it's a cynical thing, but like the way in which Shinji is always going to lay in bed and play that same tape over and over again is the same way the show gives characters moments where they could realize something, and then next episode they're right back on their bullshit.
Well, it's not that they could; they often do.
Yeah,
like
they
do,
always fall back on their bullshit.
Yeah, and like I think one of the things I don't like about like Eva's approach is that it refuses to like acknowledge abuse as anything other than like a symbiotic relationship of breakdown of humans. It can never acknowledge when someone just is an asshole. Like it always has to be deep. Like no one can just go, Gendo, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
like,
it tries to like depict being on your bullshit in like a really negative way, not in like the fun Twitter way, as a profound statement about human nature. And this is like the thing that torpedoes the end of Evangelion when we get there.
Oh my god.
But like the final conclusion of Anno's stuff seems to be humans are just gonna like go back into their worst impulses, and not in like a we need to let go of like trying to be our best selves and just like accept who we are, but in a there's no point to any of this. It's all just going to cycle the drain forever.
So I guess this is a good time to get into the final section of the show, because that's what we're already talking about.
So before that, episode 21, I think it is.
Yes, so 20 is the episode where he like eats the Ava and takes the S2 engine inside himself. Episode
21 should be like 6 episodes, and it'd be the best 6 episodes of Evangelion. Yeah. Instead, it's 1 episode, and it's like nigh incomprehensible with how much stuff it throws at you.
Wait,
which is
the like the past?
It's the 15 years, between Second Impact and now, and it's about like Ritsuko and Kaji and Misato and Gendo getting married to Yui and all of that stuff, and because it's all in the context of Fuyutsuki's like whole history with everyone.
Yeah,
because he's being interrogated by Seele, and the stuff about Gendo in here I think is really interesting, and it doesn't matter to the rest of the show one bit.
No, like there's never a confrontation between Gendo and Shinji. They never actually have a conversation about this.
Yep. But like Gendo in this episode is depicted as like he was like this like rough, violent youth that Fuyutsuki took in, and then he fell in love with his star pupil to the point where like when they get married, he takes Yui's name. He's like, oh, she's the better part of us, and I need to like be as much like her as possible. And the thing I know is that the movies changed that, and I'm so mad about it.
Well, the movies Gendo is just evil.
Yeah, and it gives you a vision of Gendo as like a like broadly tragic character that isn't in the rest of Evangelion. In the rest of Evangelion, he is basically a mustache-twirling villain. Like, he cares about Rei, but his caring about Rei is depicted in such like weird, groomy, gross ways when you get to like the reveals about that stuff. And even before that, like, it just feels icky in a way that this episode doesn't. And I really wish this episode informed more of Evangelion, but it feels like a thing they thought up and then forgot about instantly.
Well, they didn't forget about it. Not to go into End of Evangelion too much, but there's a scene in that where he like admits that he's been doing this on purpose to like keep shit, like basically adult Shinji as the worst version of himself is what they try to say Gendo is, which doesn't really hold true about the rest of the show. But I think if that's a thing they're going to do, why isn't he in the weird headspace at the end of the show? Why isn't the show like, there's a version of the show that is good, and it's Final Fantasy X, right? Like, it is high-fiving your dad in the way to the afterlife, and realizing that, like, you can overcome these things. Like, because I had basically finished my rewatch of End of Eva, like, about 5 minutes before we played Final Fantasy X.
Yep.
And so coming into that scene, I was like, oh, fuck, this is incredible. Like, this is just the thing that I wanted from the thing that I like, but the thing that I like refused to give me because it thought that not giving it was more profound.
Yeah.
When I just disagree, because I like the end of the show after that, the good stuff, and then the like stuff that should be good but is way too compressed is 4 episodes of everyone falling apart and going to shit, like in just the most depressing way. And the only way I think it works is because it's in lead up to the final episode where he stands up and it's like, hooray, we've broken through everything. I don't think that's...
Yeah, I don't think that works because the other characters are given such short shrift, and the stuff they do put on them is often very gross.
Yeah, like, I'm not defending it, but I think that, like, my view of this show is that it is literally, the depressing stuff is all there in, like, to build up to the climax. Without that climax, it becomes even more illegal, as we will see. Yeah.
So, episode 22, which is the one about Asuka's, like, childhood, and then she goes against the angel on her own, and just basically gets her, like, mind destroyed. Really, I hate it. It might be my least favorite thing in Evangelion. Asuka is the character I identify with the most in the show. So much of her, like, situation is she, like, always wanted to be seen as like the good, like, competent special child by the adults, and so she would try her best to be an adult, act like an adult, be responsible way beyond her years. And then she comes up against Shinji, who is just good at stuff and isn't even like capable of processing why he's good at stuff, and is too humble about it because she doesn't understand Japanese culture at all, and no one bothers to tell her. So she just suffers everyone, like, upstaging her and being really modest about it in a way that she is incapable of doing because her life has been wrapped around her pride. But then the show basically, like, makes her falling apart, like, a thing that's about Shinji being, like, better than her still at the end of all this, and I hate it.
I don't think it's necessarily completely that.
So much of that episode is her, like, falling apart, and then everyone, like, extending a hand to her, and then her not being able to let go of her anger, and then everyone's like, oh, I guess she's just mad, I guess, and walking away. And it sucks. It sucks so much.
Oh, sure, but, like, I don't know. I don't think the episode is necessarily good. I think the way they go about it is, like, really gross, because they basically do a mind rape plot. For her, as she's like,
oh, for sure.
Like,
but like, her problems existed before all of that. Like, this is the catalyst, right? But everything about the way Asuka interacts with everyone is about this stuff way before this happens.
Yes, but I don't necessarily think it's all as bad as that. Like, I wish she had. Basically, I think it needs the, like, release that Shinji gets at the end. Every character needs that thing. I actually like that her whole thing is that her worldview is built around being this, like, being really good at this, and, like, I'm gonna put on my Ava and like show everyone who I am, and I'm gonna prove to everyone that I'm an adult. And then the character who she's, like, in love with is like, please go away, you're a child, and then dead, and no one talks to her about it, and she just falls apart. And it's like, for as much as I relate to Shinji as a character and everything, I think the stuff with Asuka falling apart is actually the most, like, relatable, quote unquote, heartbreaking stuff in the show. It needs to build to something better, but I feel really bad for her, and I am like, Asuka is a big part of, like, why I like the show, and I think it needs to have her worn down to, like, Shinji should not be the only one to, like, have his bullshit.
Oh, sure, but they don't do it. Like, they don't care about her bullshit. They just have her fall apart, and then they leave it.
I don't know.
Or they transform it into something really monstrous in End of Eva.
Yeah, like, the stuff in End of Eva is terrible.
Like, her stuff in episode 25 is not that good, honestly. Like, so much of that is in the rapid fire stuff of, here's all of the women who have troubles. Let's, like, mock and dismiss all of their problems because Shinji's the only one whose problems are real and good. Like the trio of going through Ritsuko and Masato and Asuka like in rapid fire succession, they're all depicted as like the things that are weak about them are because of their gender in a way that I really hate.
Well, I think that is way more true of Ritsuko and Masato.
Yeah, like, but Asuka being put right next to them, like she might come out the best, but having them all in a row, and then the other person is Shinji, who is able to give a whole episode to work through that problem, and they are not. It's very clear the difference in that. Like she ends up being like her stuff is problematic by association as well. Like
I don't disagree.
They're like this show is about broken women who can't handle being around the men who get the catharsis that everyone should get.
I mean, like when I rewatched the show, I was like actively furious at all the Ritsuko stuff.
Yes.
Like I was gobsmacked that this was allowed to be in a television show. Cause her thing is like, her mum built the Magi, but
so the stuff with her mom building the Magi and then just her mom being a bit of a shit and a mess, like that stuff I think is really interesting. The way it then imprints on Ritsuko's story is awful.
You know, the way that like the stuff with her and her killing Rei and everything, as melodramatic and stupid as it is, I think it's like okay. Like I like the Gendo's treatment of women has like an actual body count between like Gendo's treatment of how he uses characters comes out on these characters fighting against each other in a like way that ends up killing one of them is
and it sure only really applies to women, huh?
Yeah, but in that episode, I'm like, oh yes, this evil person has like his thoughtlessness and carelessness has pit these two like women against each other in a way that's disgusting. Gendo is awful, but then the way it actually comes back is Ritsuko then starts sleeping with Gendo and is like, I let him use me because it makes me feel purposeful, but then he doesn't love me, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, they like, and End of Eva leans into just giving her like a jilted lover storyline. That's awful. We'll get to that.
Terrible. Like, yes, because the Ritsuko stuff I like is her playing off against Kaji and Masato is this kind of like quietly jealous, but also so far removed from what they want and doesn't like understand herself as much. Like that dynamic she fits in really well as these two like all three of them are a mess, but those two have each other and she's kind of more separated and alone and private about stuff. And it's not that she like wants Kaji or anything, but she does like feel like a lack there. And then
it's the Masato stuff where they talk about her like feeling dirty and needing to like find approval through like older men that she's around, and it's really gross.
They sure do, because basically someone handed fucking Anno a book on Freud halfway through the show.
Yes.
Who's the worst human who's ever existed. Why did you do that? Yep. And it like that the Masato stuff is everyone comes out and slut shames her. Like that is literally what happens in her sequence.
Yep.
Basically going, why do you sleep with people and like the base themes of that are like okay in terms of the show being about approval and wanting approval and like the dynamics between people, but it just manifests itself in just the most like no one has thought about how sexist they are once in their lives.
Yeah.
It sucks because I do like those themes and I like them when applied to Shinji because you know the people writing the show can empathize with the man.
Yep. I will say, since we're watching the director's cut stuff, in episodes 25 or 26, I don't remember which one, we do get shots of Ritsuko and Masato like dead in the way they are in End of Eva, implying that both things do happen at the same time. Do you want to get into that stuff after we talk about End of Eva? Yes, but I do want to note that it's here, that there are seeds dropped that like Shinji's whole realization of instrumentality is happening within End of Eva.
There are similar images used. I would not say that.
Like, the implication is maybe not that they happen at the same time, but that, like, in the inciting incident of however instrumentality triggers in the show, which we don't really see it begin, but, like, at some point, Rei and Gendo totally go down and confront Ritsuko, and then she gets shot because she sucks. And she should not have dared feel any sort of like wrong by Gendo. Like that stuff is in the show by implication, by backfill.
I just don't agree. Like it isn't in the show though, right? Like we can speculate all day about what.
But like it literally shows her like face down in the pool of LCL down at the bottom of like Central Dogma. So like the scene that in which she dies in End of Eva is depicted in the end of the show. Like we don't get to see the lead up, but we do totally see her dead in the pool.
That context is not in the show, and like maybe
no, it's not.
And maybe it would have been.
Given that they filled that stuff in and then made a movie about that stuff, like you can't dismiss the movie just because you don't like it. It's
No,
still
but
part of Eva.
Yeah, no, I'm not dismissing it as like because I don't like it, but I am saying that like I think those two are more separate, mostly because the way instrumentality works in the show is fundamentally just not the same thing. It is not the same thing. Like,
but in the minute in the scene where Masada or where like everyone is like going through the like facing your struggles of who you are as a person, also Gendo fucking gunned down Ritsuko and she's dead in a pool.
I think the only image is just Ritsuko dead in the pool. Like that is all you get.
I'm pretty sure there's one of Masato slumped against a wall, which is not how she dies in the movie, but
yeah, no, there are two. I don't think those were in the director's cut. The director's cut stuff is doesn't change 25 and 26. It basically adds loads of people in the prior episodes talking about mass production Avas and stuff.
Okay, because I just assumed it was added in the after they knew what the movie was. But maybe it's just in there
just two images. Implying that everyone died.
Yes.
And also, like, I'm not saying that this is a correct interpretation, especially because I feel like the years and the fandom have borne this out. But considering my like long held feeling on End of Eva was it gives you a bunch of answers to things, but those are the worst and most terrible answers. Like the it's a joke version. Like I don't know. That is how it is always held together in its best way in my head. I don't necessarily think that's right, and a lot of like this revisit has been kind of that falling apart because everyone loves End of Eva, and it's a fucking terrible movie.
I mean, I think it's like a good movie about monstrous things. I don't know. So much of that movie is about like so much of that movie is about like its textual stuff that I think is really good. And
so let's get into it.
Happens. Oh no! So before we do that, we have to finish the show. So do you want to talk about Kaworu because the show sure doesn't care?
Not really.
Like
I do want to talk about how crazy both of us had this thing where when we first watched the show, the sequence where he's an angel and Ode to Joy plays is like the craziest thing and most intense thing that's ever happened in an anime, and it's just the piddliest shit when we went back.
Yeah, it's just him, like, it's just like a plate of him standing there floating down the background for like 5 minutes.
I did not have a lot of money left.
But also the fandom is so wrapped up in like Kaworu is like a major character, and he just shows up in this episode is like menacing to Shinji, who's too dumb to realize he's being played, and then Shinji gets played.
I do not think the show think that he is being played.
I feel like the way he comes on is like basically like the most predatory shit in the entire world, and people sure lap it up.
I don't disagree, but given everything else the show does about like
sure, maybe the show doesn't realize it, but I can't believe the fandom is like into this because it sucks.
Yeah, we'll get into some more of this next time. But yeah, I don't know, the Kaworu stuff I remember being more impactful, but it doesn't. It feels needless and meaningless. Like he mostly exists as a lore spouter, to let you know that this is actually Lilith the whole time, rather than because I had remembered it in my head being like the because it's a direct parallel to Lala, right? Like here is the one character who understands our main character, and then you are forced to kill them as 53-second held shots, because that's how it's important.
Yeah.
And
I would like to point out Lala is totally killed on accident in the middle of a battle that is full of good stuff.
No, the last stuff is good.
Yes.
Like I don't think it in any way comes up to that parallel. One, because I think it goes so hard on the Shinji stuff earlier that the Toji thing is when this happens, is when everything falls to shit for him. Like,
yes.
He invested in something and then it betrayed him. Like, that has already happened. And then you literally had the same sequence as episode 25 and 26 preceding that. Like, the Shinji should be done at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that it ends up being redundant because it was placed in the show. And it's also predatory, but I don't think the show realizes that. I think it is meant to be earnest. I think it is meant to be someone extending a hand to Shinji and then having to kill him. I think that's what the show's doing.
Yeah, that hand is like so creepy, and like it feels so much like his objective is to just get Shinji's trust as fast as possible, because they did this all too fast that it just feels gross.
In the manga, he comes in way earlier.
Yeah, no, I understand that like you could fix this, but the way it's presented is really bad. And then we have episode 26, unless you wanted to say something about Kaworu.
I was just going to say something about the manga, which is that he's doing the Devilman Crybaby thing, like he's killing a bird.
Great.
So he's literally just doing that.
Great. That sucks.
And he's laying there for like 4 volumes, and he stays in the house and everything. I don't really remember the manga that much. It's weird.
Okay. Episode 26.
The 26th, the final episode of the show.
It's a happy ending. The only one we're ever gonna get.
Yes. Well, we'll see. We shall see.
The only one you're ever gonna get. How about that?
Nope, not true.
Okay.
We'll get into that next time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 25 is kind of everyone in the instrumentality, but 26 is all Shinji all the time. I think aside from the fact that it decides for no reason in the middle, like it has to do a thing in the end of this episode where he sees an alternate reality and understands that, wait, no, I don't just exist to pilot Ava. I exist because I exist and I can form connection with other people. Maybe everything can be okay.
So that vision of the alternate reality,
yes,
should be really good because it's basically like a light parody of like light anime. Yeah, it's basically like the opening episode of Sailor Moon, but in Ava, and it's really off. Like it puts you on the wrong foot and is like really interesting to see. But then the like last 10 episodes of this show kind of forgot it's horny because too much stuff was going on. Is all injected into this scene where it's just the fucking most awful tropey bullshit. It reads like someone making fun of anime.
It absolutely does.
It's bad because the show also then takes it as like, this is the thing that made Shinji realize that life was worth living, and it's this bullshit.
Like that part sucks. I like the show's like I like 26 as an ending generally, but I wish that they could have done anything else for this because I've seen the first episode of Sailor Moon. It's fantastic. What the fuck are you doing?
Yes. I think this ending is like solid on the face of it if you only take 26 in, but that Shinji gets all of this time to come to the realization, oh, maybe I should like extend a hand to other people, where the episode previously a line of women gets berated for their life choices, makes it really hard for me to stomach this as like the good ending. It just feels like patting a man on the back for being a man.
That I understand. I know there's a thing that people like to talk about with like, oh, when he says I can love myself, and like everyone else says that as well. Like it's meant to be like it plays Shinji as the shared viewpoint for like everyone is there at the end. Everyone manages to break through their bullshit, but we don't see it for anyone else. We don't feel it for anyone else. We only feel it for Shinji.
And explicitly, we just got them being like fucking dragged through the mud for living their lives.
Like there's a version of this where it's everyone trapped in their own world and coming together.
Yeah,
and it would have been much better for it.
Yeah. Oh, you mean if this show cared about other people?
Yeah, I mean if the show was good.
Yeah.
Like I still like it, like especially compared to what we're going to get, and I still think that the ending is like, I still feel I care about Shinji enough that I am happy when he manages to get through, and I'm glad that the ending is everyone like making it into whatever this instrumentality world is. We'll talk about how the dynamics of that are and literally do not make sense as compared to End of Eva. Like they are fundamentally incompatible in a way that's weird, for sure, considering they are made by the same people. We'll talk about that later, but I think it is like competent, all this stuff, like as a massive asterisk, and I understand anyone who's like fuck this show because it like shat all over the women and didn't even give them their catharsis. But I still care enough about Shinji that when he breaks through, I'm like, yeah, go Shinji, everyone's clapping for him.
Yeah. The thing that like my final summation of Evangelion, like as much as I'm like talk about why I hate it thematically, is it's the show that works best when you're like, wow, cool robot.
Me crossing out, like erasing Freud from that top arrow.
yeah. If you just like ignore that top arrow where the themes happen, because the themes are fucking awful. The show's like really fun. I think the like robot fights are good. The Evangelions are like really interesting in the ways in which they're animalistic, and then that is revealed to be because they're giant people soul things. That stuff's great.
You see, the first ancestral race.
Fucking, we are not talking about any of that bullshit.
Yeah, no, we are not.
NGE2.
God. The ending also, because of everything that Eva is, everything that there's the culture around that, and everything that I knew, like I had seen gifs of the clapping scene before I got to it in the show. And so I had always expected Eva to have a really cynical and disgusting ending, and everyone would be like, everyone dies, and that's just what I heard about going into the show. And I obviously in the movie found out why that was the case of its reputation. But the first time I watched it, I was just so taken aback by the fact that it had like an earnest ending that I was like, wow, oh my god, they did it. They did the thing. And then everyone was mad and they never did it again.
Yep.
But yeah, because I just remember everything I knew about that scene was in a context of I was just expecting it to be like a joke or like everyone clapping because fuck you, Shinji. But no, it was like, I don't know. Eva could be good if it was earnest, but it just never is.
Yep.
And there is so much I like about it and so much that I will hold on to, but I can join you in saying the thing as a grand existence is probably bad for the world. And let's get into why.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me.
It is time for Third Impact, Jackson. We are here to
Impact.
talk about the end of Evangelion.
We sure are.
So this is a 1997 movie. It's just the same stuff. It's the people. They made the movie now. Here we go.
Production IG were involved somehow. That's
Yes.
right.
The thing about this is that it picks up at the end of episode 24.
Yes.
And is a new vision of the last two episodes of Evangelion, and is, at least in the one I watched, like depicted as two separate episodes, which is very weird.
Oh, that's just true of the thing. Like the credits happen halfway through,
Yeah, it's really strange.
which is a very Anno move of like, oh, isn't this impressive? I put the credits in the middle. Like, shut up, Anno.
No. Also, they're hilariously goofy,
90s
like mid-90s
CGI.
CG credits.
Yes. Oh, they sure are. They sure
Yep.
are that.
I'm pretty sure I could make those credits in Power Director in about 5 minutes.
Oh, you probably could.
You know.
So End of Eva. End of Eva is like talked up as like one of the best movies of all time, one of the most incredible postmodern works, blah, 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 depending on where you go. I think it's shit.
I think it's beautiful shit.
So our fundamental difference here is because I still hold on to liking more of Eva. I think of End of Eva as like an awful like blight on what should have been really good. And you think of it as
I think of it as the ending that Evangelion deserved and always was leading up to.
like the awful truth of itself being revealed.
Yes.
Because it is essentially a movie in which the character that you've come to invest in for 24 episodes suddenly, out of nowhere, is a coward rapist, and then throughout the film learns to be a coward rapist. That is what the movie is. That is the film. It is 86 minutes of
Instead of realizing that he's going to reach out to people, Shinji just learns to reach out to himself over the comatose body of his friend.
This is like a meme because of its scene, but like you step back from anime culture for like less than a centimeter, this is one of the most disgusting things to put in your movie.
I think watching this in 2004 is fundamentally why I don't like Evangelion and never can.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a terrible scene. Like,
yeah.
I was like taken aback at how like, because the way that plays in the show is the Kamaro episode goes direct into 25, where the first thing he's doing is having a crisis as to like, why did you kill him? And none of that is present. It's just, no one else will talk to me, but you're asleep, so I'm gonna masturbate. Like, that... What?
Yeah, that is the appropriate response. It's awful. And it's played as like a negative thing that he does, but he never suffers any consequences for it. None of it actually matters in the textual thing of the plot. So it just kind of feels like Anno deciding that he's going to be edgy because it's a movie now and he can get away with it.
I mean, so like the interpretation that always, the defense of it that I always hear is that this is like, a critical of its fan base and being like, this is the bad end. This is what happens when you can't let go. Like, either you get over your bullshit or you masturbate over teenage girls. Make your choice, cowards. I don't think that holds true because the show's already on its... Like, the show ended with, like, Shinji looking up Rei's pants. Like, that happened in the final episode.
My reaction to this is if he could get away with it, the TV show would be even pornier.
And, like, I don't think that by being explicit about the fact that it's now all psychosexual, I don't think that makes it better. I don't think intellectualizing how disgusting this is makes it good.
In fact, the rest of this movie shows that in fact it is the worst thing you could have done.
I know many people listening might be this movie is beloved, right? And I've never understood it because, you know, I am
I think a large swaths of it are amazing to look at, but it's like a very beautiful atrocity happening in slow motion. So
yeah, and I know that's like what it is. Even people who like it think it's that, and just like it's very intense. What I don't understand why people find this movie intense and emotional. I think that it is so nihilistic that why could I give a shit? I don't understand caring when
I remember thinking that it's like the first time I watched it, I remember because I was younger and had not seen as many movies.
Yes.
That it was like one of the most like mind-blowingly like fatalistic things I'd ever been subjected to.
That's kind of true.
But then also the show kind of like ends up walking, like the movie ends up walking that back in a way that I think sucks. And then its final conclusion is to take all the worst things that happened thematically and carry them forward, but none of the actual like responsibility that is entailed with all of that.
Yeah. So the plot of the movie as it is.
Sele is here, and they are going to fight Gendo because they both want instrumentality, but in a nebulously different way that you can look up on a wiki. But honestly, none of the show and movie really support reading into.
It's so terrible. Oh my god! So like the entire show is everyone investigating into it, and then the answers like. The way it is able to salvage a kind of good ending, at least for me, like with Minions of Asterix we're just going into, the way it's able to salvage that ending is literally dropping all of its plot in the final 2 episodes because it all sucks so much.
Yes. So if someone wants to know, the main point is that Gendo wants human instrumentality for everyone or whatever, and Sele want to like put their souls in the like awakened Evangelion as like an arc to survive instrumentality and become gods of a new world.
I thought Sele was like, we don't want to use Eva as the arc.
No, they want to. I think they want to do that, and Gendo does not. Gendo just wants everyone to be in the suit.
I mean, Gendo wants everyone to be in the suit specifically so he can be with Yui. Like, Gendo is using instrumentality as an end.
Yes.
Because...
But they basically want the same thing, but with, like, slight asterisks. This is just, like, warring Christian sex at this point.
Yeah, and it all comes into one, like, literally one scene, because they didn't put any of it in the show, because the show wasn't really about this. So there's one scene at the start of the movie where they go, we don't want either for this, we are going to instrumentality for this, and they're like, death is what you shall have, and like, that's it. That's all you get to the motivations of everything that happens in this movie. That is the whole thing.
Yeah, so they send the military into Nerve, and Nerve then proceeds to, like, gun down basically almost everyone who isn't a main character.
Yeah, there's a real extended sequence of everyone getting murdered. Now that they can murder people, they sure do.
Yeah, it's just like hallways awash with blood, like doors get opened and then like a soldier fires a flamethrower into a room of people who scream. It's fucking awful.
I vividly remember the first time I watched this being like, at the 20-minute point in the movie, realizing there was no way it could be good, because having just come off of the ending and being like, the thing I am rooting for here is for Shinji to figure out his bullshit.
So what's happening in this, while this is going on, Misato, who is the only person who like is able to handle this, puts the comatose Asuka in Eva 2 and sends her in the bottom of a lake. Like, they won't find her. Hopefully she can wake up and do something someday. And then drags a basically comatose Shinji through the plot until he gets in a robot.
Yeah, like Shinji is so comatose and incompetent and unable, like, because of the trauma of episode, like the preceding episodes, is unable to do anything. This is the least interesting Shinji to me. That like, oh, he's so depressed that he can't even function, and because of his incompetence, everyone dies around him. Like,
yes,
it is. It's disrespectful to like Shinji as a character. I feel like the show, even the show's grossest, it was never this like hatefully nihilistic about everything.
Yes. Also, none of it matters because then Shinji like gets an out at the end, which we'll get to.
So yeah, so he gets a okay. No, we have to do the actual thing that matters in this movie first.
No. But before that, let's talk about what happens to the rest of Nerve. So,
okay.
Ritsuko is trying to like prevent an explosion, right, or whatever.
No.
She's trying to prevent hacking or something. Because she's dealing with Casper, right?
The trying to prevent the self-destruct sequence.
Oh, right. Okay, so let's so Gendo takes Rei down to the bottom. He's going to like use her and fuse with the angel, and that will trigger third impact and instrumentality, which is what he wants. Ritsuko is down there being like, I'm going to stop you because you never cared about me. You just fucked me and left me to die. And she's going to blow this whole place up. And then she goes to trigger the explosion, and the Magi computer Casper, which is the soul of her mother as a woman, refuses because she's still loyal to Gendo, where Ritsuko is like a two-timing bitch. And then Gendo shoots her, and that's what happens to Ritsuko. It fucking sucks.
Literally, I was furious. Like, how is this... Ritsuko's a character I like.
Yep.
And she doesn't have, like all of her bullshit has been more, like, it's been very, like, my cat died, I didn't see her because I left her with my grandma, because I've been busy, but now I miss her, and now I feel weird. Like, it just, like, her stuff is kind of, like, put to the background, but it's a very, like, adult kind of, like, neurosis, as opposed to Shinji's very adolescent, just everything is calamitous all the time.
Yes.
So I like, Ritsuko is a character who you should come to the show and watch as an adult and be like, oh, this is the one I see myself in now, whereas I saw myself in the children before. And they just destroy her in every way possible. Even her mother is like, no, I am actually still loyal to Gendo. And it's presented as like a horrifying thing you're meant to be shocked at, but there's no empathy towards Ritsuko. I don't know, I hate it so much.
Speaking of ill-treated women, Masato trying to coax Shinji into moving and getting in the robot, like, basically is sitting outside the elevator to the Eva Bay, and it's like, Shinji, you need to do this, and you're the only one who can save us, and he's not responsive, so she gives him her cross necklace. She's like, I'm gonna be back for this, and then kisses him and says, if you come back, she basically implies, if you come back, I'll fuck you, and then push him in the elevator as she dies.
Oh, so she got killed by just a random soldier?
I think she gets shot, yeah, and then she explodes shortly after.
Because they're like, that area is scheduled for demolition, which is why they don't follow her.
Yes.
But everyone else gets like a thematically appropriate death, right? Like, bad though it is, like Asuka gets...
I mean, I guess she gets a thematically appropriate one in that she literally dies to motivate Shinji to get in the robot, which is the most fucking big...
Yes. I mean, you're right. Like, that scene is, when I say thematically appropriate, I don't mean good. But like, the Ritsuko stuff is the head, like, it's the head of what they were doing with that character. So is the Asuka stuff. So is the Rei stuff. Like, and then she just gets killed randomly when her time of, like, fixing Shinji is done. And maybe that's because, like, her actual... because the show can't really conceive of, like, characters without men to define them. Without Kaji, Misato is basically just kind of, like, listless for the rest of the series.
Yes.
So
there's a bit, going back to the show, there's a bit in, like, maybe, like, 24, probably, maybe 25, where... Misato comes in to comfort Shinji when he's like at his worst, and she like sits on the bed and then like holds his hand, and she's like, I'm sorry, this is all I can do for you, and like leans into him, and my partner was like, is she like trying to kiss him? Is she like gonna fuck him or something? And I was like, I don't think that's what this show is doing, but in the like view of what this movie does, maybe it was. The only read that makes sense in the Masato stuff, like the way to like actually bring yourself to not hate it, is that her whole thing is she's basically still a kid inside because, you know, that's what being an adult is, and she's trying to be like a surrogate parent to this child that she cares about. That is but like best. making your main woman, she's like a child inside when no one else gets that is the fucking most bullshit. Yeah, I know. Like toxic masculine sexist nonsense. I hate it.
That's the good version of it, because the bad version of it is she's trying to fuck him.
Yeah.
And
we're like, she's just gonna fuck this kid to make him feel better, which God. But
this scene doesn't
the
play
myopic
like
worldview that requires you to make that the plot point.
This scene doesn't even play like it's she knows that Shinji is a fucked up mess and is just like doing it doesn't play that she's just doing this to make him get in the robot. It plays as like it's like that it's revealing an undercurrent to their relationship. Like she is included in the weird Oedipus miasma women of like the people that Shinji wants to fuck but can't actually act on because he's a 14-year-old coward. And I hate it.
Yeah. So a hilarious sentence on the Wikipedia summary of this is, meanwhile, inside Unit 02, Asuka overcomes her trauma.
In what is one of the only good moments, like, in this movie, Asuka realizing that her mother is with her always, and she doesn't have to feel abandoned, even though she's gone, is like the catharsis she should have got in the show.
She like realizes that her pride is like worth something to her, and that's all that really matters because she's enough.
So, because I was an idiot, the first time I watched this show, I didn't realize the mums were in the Evas. This makes all this stuff way better when it's not your mum's in the Eva.
Yeah.
When it's an actual realization about herself and what she wants, and not just do you want to stay in the womb, which is just, oh god, which is like rewatching the show and like, oh right, that's doing that all the time. Like, all the time.
Yeah. Like literally Shinji dissolves into the womb miasma. He's like unborn in episode 20.
It is not subtle.
Yeah.
But the first time, like, not picking up on that stuff because I didn't even consider that, like, you know, because the show is vague enough about its, like, souls and stuff, you can, like, miss some things very easily. And so I was, like, just took this as just a character bit before.
I mean, it's a really good character bit, even with the fucking, her mom's the robot thing.
But, like, it is what Asuka needed in the show. It ends up being kind of completely shat on by this movie, but for this one moment where she realizes that she can be herself and regains 100% sync rate, and fights all of the JSDF and then all the mass production Evas.
So yeah, you get a like several minutes. I guess it's just like the what is it, 3 minutes when the Evas are disconnected or whatever, because her thing gets disconnected instantly, basically. 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes.
It's 5 minutes, but it's like. She fights with the umbilical cord for a while. Umbilical cord, get it? And then they shoot it off, and then the Evas arrive, and she has 3.5 minutes.
So you just get like 5 minutes of the fucking best mech fighting that I've probably ever seen to date.
We have not yet seen the Gundam where it gets expensive, so yes.
Where she's just like throwing boats at tanks and catching missiles with her face, and just like, and she's so like rapturous in being able to gleefully destroy all of these people. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is the thing in this movie.
It's definitely my favorite part of this movie. And because this movie can't let us have any joy, she basically like succeeds and is like, oh, I did it. And then all of the mass production Evas regenerate and proceed to fucking murder her Eva, and I guess her by proxy.
And like the Asuka getting murdered is like the catalyst to get Shinji to like do the scream, right? Like,
yeah, because he wakes up and gets in the robot's out there, and he sees her like pieces of her Eva being dragged away by like the bird like mass production Evas. Yeah,
like basically he gets in the robot and is like, oh, finally I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something in this movie. You've been waiting for 40 minutes for him to literally make any choice whatsoever. Gets in, sees that Asuka's been killed, and then just screams and doesn't do anything. Continues.
And then credits.
And credits!
That's the end of guys. The first half. Yeah. So the second half is we go back to Gendo and Rei standing there in the pool as Ritsuko is just like dead on like stage right the rest of the time. Yeah. Which is a big fucking bummer. And Gendo's like, it's time for us to merge and create the impact. And then Rei basically is like, yeah, let's do that, but you're not going to be a part of it. And she chops off his hand, right?
Well, his hand is Adam.
Yeah, but she takes his hand and not the rest of him.
Yeah, she's basically like, goodbye, I'm not your doll, I'm leaving you, which is a bit rich for this movie to be like, yeah, you tell him.
Yes, like, it is technically the only really good choice anyone makes in this movie, but also it feels like too little too late.
Well, but it's yes, but it's like dumber than that, because it's actually what she's doing is like, no, I will leave the choice up to Shinji. And
yes, that's true. Because Rei doesn't actually have personhood ever.
Nope.
All she has done is transfer her like loving affection from the dad to the son.
Yes, the show is about metaphor.
You want to talk about fucking Freudian bullshit?
Yeah.
But the one of the most striking things, the thing I think I'm like most into in Evangelion then happens, where she merges with Lilith and turns into a giant version of herself, and this new vision of instrumentality happens. Where a giant angel Rei absorbs all of the souls of humanity as like cross beams fire across the earth, and mysterious ghost rays show up to everyone and hug them, and then they explode into LCL.
You're forgetting the worst part of this.
I mean, there's the part where the Ava's crucified, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, no, I meant the part where that's not The part where Fuyutsuki's monologuing every single thing that happens.
Look, none of that matters.
Oh, the door of Guff is opening.
Stupid.
No, but that's why this movie exists. It's so that like instrumentality has like reasons to explain it. It's
the Chamber of Guff is maybe the stupidest part of Evangelion.
Oh, the Black Moon has returned to its original form.
If you ever want, so I was looking up the whole scene on YouTube, and I found it in English. And if you ever want to like suffer bad dubs, bored sounding like animation office intern who voices Fuyutsuki narrating this is maybe the best thing in the world.
The Chamber of Guff is opening.
Yes.
Yeah. Tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down.
Well, so all this happens. Shinji has been crucified by the like Lance of Longinus, right?
Yep.
And then he is turned into like a giant like cross-shaped lance, which like descends into the forehead of the giant Ray Angel. There's just a lot of like bullshit, like capital S symbology happening right now, but all of it is like the dumbest like JRPGs borrowing from whatever religion interests the character designer.
Yeah, no, it's not meaningful.
Yeah. But then there's like this dream, a series of dreams, in fact.
Yes.
Is this where they do the live action stuff that's weird?
Nope, that is at the end of
After?
this.
Okay, great. So the thing that matters is where there's like a scene of him arguing with Asuka in their apartment.
Yes.
And it's just like all the stuff Asuka's heaped on him, and Shinji's choice in that moment is to like grab Asuka by the neck and start to strangle her, which is when Come Suser Todd starts playing, which is a great song, over a bunch of hot bullshit here. Because his whole thing is like, everyone needs to die, and I'm going to start with you, Asuka, the person who has wronged me the most, or whatever bullshit you want to assign to this moment.
Just like imagine, like I'm imagining, I don't have to imagine, this happened to me, coming into this movie, being like, Shinji, I want to see him succeed. Starts off, like masturbating over Asuka, gets to this scene where Asuka says, I know you've been masturbating over me. He goes, that's fair, you need to die now. Then the song plays.
like the cathartic moment for Shinji is depicting like historical violence against women for calling out men for committing violence against women. Like, it's the fucking most awful thing that's possible.
I really hate this movie.
It's really bad. So then he's like, oh, everyone needs to die. I'm going to kill Asuka, and this is the right thing in the world. And that's when the like Ray Angel converts everyone to LCL and turns everyone into single consciousness, which is where Shinji starts hallucinating live action footage.
It's after it all finishes.
Yes.
So yeah, like everyone finished. I do want to mention the scene where everyone dies in Nerve and comes to place.
Yes.
I kind of like that scene, if only because I am grateful for any of the scraps of characterization we get between any of the Nerve characters.
Oh, you mean the three technicians whose names I never remember because they're barely characters?
I wish Hyuga got more to do. They should have given Hyuga some stuff to do. That's my take.
Which one's that?
He's the guy who's across from Masato who keeps leaking information. I like their kind of weird relationship at the end of that show where, like, her boyfriend's dead, everything's falling to shit, so she's just, like, leaning on this shitty, like, nice boy. I don't know. There's something honest about that I like. The show doesn't, like, the show is so wrapped up in yelling at Masato for other bullshit that doesn't even realize this is interesting.
Yeah. I have seen in the anime fandom grabbing onto any straw presented to them the scene with, yes, Ritsuko is her being presented as Ritsuko is like a lesbian, even though she's currently dead because her jilted lover Shinji's dad shot her.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could take the other character definitely has a crush on Ritsuko, that's true, but like Third Impact isn't. It's literally just people's like desires becoming true as they melt into the soup. Like, that's all
the one thing that I think is interesting here, and I think I hate it because is no the thing like. When all of the Rays show up and turn everyone to LCL, it doesn't happen to Gendo.
Well, no. That was the point.
Yeah, but like the idea that like Shinji gets to make this decision, but Gendo is like too irredeemable to be like brought into this future of like everyone gets this choice is the like the dumbest thing possible. It's so wrapped up in Shinji being the special boy that it fucking like makes Gendo irredeemable, but Shinji not, in a way that I don't understand ever.
I mean, this scene is very out of place in this movie. Like, that's why I brought it up at the end of the show, because it's like where Gendo admits that he's been doing this to protect himself, and he's also a coward, and we see him as like the dark version of Shinji. Problem is, this movie is already the darkest version of Shinji possible.
Yes.
Like, so you can't do that in a show that's about, like, in a movie that's about like that. It doesn't fit. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't get it. Because the idea of, oh, he's doing this to become one with everyone, but because his quest to become one with everyone results in him using literally everyone on the way, he gets rejected. That is, like, thematically works fine as a thing in isolation. When you bring it into what this movie is, it just falls apart completely, which is true of a lot of things about this film.
Yep. So then live action footage.
Yes. Which
we get
cosplay.
Yeah, well, we get the end of Metal Gear Solid 2 happening.
This makes me like Metal Gear Solid 2 a lot more.
So the thing, I feel the other way, because clearly Kojima saw this movie and was like, fucking yeah, this is great. And then put it in his video game.
Yeah, but he didn't carry any of the themes. He just was like, because he's Kojima, he was just like, yeah, I like shots of pedestrians.
Yes. Like, I get why this breaks the way it does for both of us. I think it speaks a lot to who we are as people. We feel opposite about the exact same thing here.
The fact that he looked at like this really cynical, awful thing and was like, yes, shots of pedestrians.
Yeah.
Very funny to me.
Yeah. But then, yeah, we get the cosplay. It's the voice actresses for the characters, right?
I think so. Like, there was a cut scene that had all the voice actors for the characters, and it was like the inverse of the show where he saw a reality without him. But probably cut it because they're the voice actors, so you didn't know who they were. Yeah. Like, it literally just played like as if this was Rei. Like, Rei was dating Toji. I think I've seen the scene once. I didn't revisit it for this because it's long and bad. And I watched it enough. But yeah, it's like Shinji sees the world without himself, but it's live action for no reason. Other than because that's postmodern.
Okay, and then at what point, I don't remember what makes Shinji realize that life, even when you suffer, is good, because I don't know how that comes to a conclusion out of all of this we've been subjected to.
It's nothing. He doesn't, it's, So, what do you read the end of this movie as? Because I feel like you saying Shinji gets an out is not true. I don't know. I don't understand.
So, Shinji is like a fucking awful person who allows all these people to die because of his inaction, and then he's like, everyone should die, so everyone turns into the LCL. And then when he's like, oh no, life is about happiness and sadness, life is just fine the way it is, then what happens is the Rei Angel like falls apart, and there's like a I don't know who narrates this. Is this Fuyutsuki early on or whatever? I don't remember. Basically, it's said that everyone who's been absorbed, gets the choice to come back or not. So everyone who's been wronged by Shinji, all these characters who died to like save him, now can just choose to reincarnate in a new world where none of this mattered.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is what happens. I don't see it as... I see it as way more awful on Shinji's behalf. Like, what Shinji happens is he's like, everyone should die, and then Rei's like, okay, everyone's dead, and then he's like, this sucks too, I want it back. Like, it's literally what he does.
But then, like, he gets to fucking end the world, says that that's going to happen, and then the minute that he thinks about it, is given, like, a happy ending where everyone can reincarnate in a world that is, like, beyond this thing now, where, like, ostensibly, like... they are all going to everyone is going to be reborn on Earth, and they can like get over it. And Shinji, who has been responsible for all of this, doesn't have to face any of the consequences of his actions.
Like, I guess that's true. I'm trying to think about how all my reads of this ending is way more like tied up in just the fact that Shinji does nothing, is awful the entire time, is like the most evil character who's ever existed, and then doesn't even like live with his own choice.
Yeah, that's basically what I said.
Yeah, no, it is, but like I don't think that the movie's letting him off. I think in the movie is it thinks it's more like I'm trying to Like he gets what he wants, and then he like hates that as well. He hates all outcomes.
But
There's no good outcome
the
for him.
movie portrays his choice as like he finally came to the right conclusion, like the same way he did in 26. But that's not what actually happens here. What happens is he once again abdicates responsibility, and the world goes on and resets itself.
I just don't. I think the thing you are saying happens. I just don't think that. I at no point do I think that he figures it out, or that the movie even thinks he figures it out.
I think the movie thinks that a lot.
How could it think that if the first thing he does is strangle Asuka again?
Because the movie doesn't think that that's as bad as it is.
Then I don't even know what
so what
is in
happens
movie's
is
terms,
the head falls apart, and the two people who decide to choose life first are Asuka, who it makes sense given that she died in the middle of like being the most Liv Moss person in the world, and Shinji, who apparently just decides to go on living because he doesn't know what else to do.
Yes.
Like wash up on the sea at the end of the world with like the giant head in the back. Everyone knows this image. And then Shinji looks over at Asuka and then like crawls on top of her and begins to strangle her. But then she wakes up realizing this is happening, and instead of like doing anything Asuka would do in this situation, reaches up and like affectionately touches Shinji's face and then like says how disgusting or whatever, and then it ends because apparently this is the good thing to have happened.
I don't think this is the good thing to have happened. Like, there is no world in which this is good. Even on the movie's terms, this is good. I think the show depicts this as like, in a world in which so much of Ava's story is like the cycles of abused women sticking by their fucking awful man, that Asuka is being strangled and then still like caresses Shinji's face is just Gendo again. Well, yeah. That's true.
But the movie went out of its way to say Shinji is not Gendo, he is better than Gendo, and here he is being the most Gendo ass motherfucker at the end of the world.
I don't you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with any of you. I'm just really confused about what this movie's even saying then, because the movie deliberately makes him awful and knows he's awful. Unless it literally doesn't think that Shinji abdicating all responsibility for the entire movie, giving up, like killing everyone, and then going, "Oh, I don't even like this." His realization in quotes is literally just going, "Oh, this sucks too, I guess, bring it back." Like, it's not treated with the gravitas that his realization in the movie in the show is. Like, if you think that the show, if this film really thinks that is actually the right thing, then like you might be right. But then it just like I don't even know how you can make something that bad.
So a large portion of the fan base thinks that this is like a weird joke of like, this is like he comes back to life after saving the world, and the first thing he does is go right back on his bullshit or whatever. And that's true, but so much of this story has been about like these cycles of this stuff like kind of unexamined, as like Gendo is a bad guy, but not because he fucking like did all this stuff to Ritsuko. It's because he's like wants this all for selfish reasons. Mm-hmm. Like, it never really condemns him for Ritsuko stuff. It condemns him for treating Shinji bad and wanting to be with his wife and being willing to sacrifice people to do it.
Like the way it thinks of all these abusive relationships is that both sides are as bad as each other, because it can't perceive of like power and abuse. It can only perceive of like people being fucked up in different ways, and that's all equal. It is incapable of saying like, no, you have done a bad thing.
So to me, this final scene of Shinji strangling Asuka, who then like finally has affection for him in a way she never did, is like depicting this as like the primordial state of nature where women love men who abuse them. And I think that's what Anno believes, and I think it fucking sucks.
I don't think it believes that, because she literally goes disgusting and then like the movie comes
but she still does it.
Yeah, like there's no, like I can't reconcile those two actions. You're right about that. Like I literally, like this movie makes no sense. I don't understand what it's trying to say.
Like this is basically like the exact plot of Antichrist, but that's like a horror movie.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not wrong. I would think of Antichrist the entire time with this discussion. But like, I remember the like anecdote about how that line was like originally, "I wouldn't let myself be killed by you of all people," and then like the voice actress, none of it worked. She was like, and I think that like the thing that Anno basically said is, if someone came in your room in the middle of the night and tried to rape you but couldn't even do that, what would you say? Like that is what it is. According to this anecdote, at least, I don't know if that's 100% true, but that is what is in Anno's mind about this ending. I don't know what the fuck that
like
says.
all that, like that, how disgusting then implies like a certain disdain that he couldn't even be man enough to do it, which is really toxic and bad.
No, I'm not saying it's like good, but I'm saying that like it is. I don't know what it's condemning, and other than I don't even understand the levels that this film was like doing this on, because it's so incoherent about this stuff, because half of it's carried over from the show that was like on a different level of bullshit. Half of it's like this new stuff that like this weird psychosexual awfulness about the like primordial cycles of abuse towards women, but without even realizing it's about that. So I can't even I can't tell what's intentional, what's not, and other than I know that it all sucks.
Yes, that's my opinion also. I think it's like one of the most myopic, sexist pieces of media I've ever seen.
Yeah, like you're not wrong. Like the existence of End of Evangelion makes it hard to like even go back to the show on any level ever, because and the fact that the entire, at least for me, the thing you have to do to like pretend to like the show, or to like the show at any level, is to like Galaxy brain yourself to tell yourself they made this as a joke, which I don't think they did. Even
if it's a joke, it's not a funny joke.
But it's like meant to be a condemnation of all these bad men, but it is not smart enough to be like, the good read of this movie, quote unquote, is that it is condemning all these things, but it's just not.
Yeah, that would make sense if the show didn't just have all these things in it in like a lower key level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
impossible for me to look at this and not think Anno just thinks that like men and women do be like that sometimes.
Yeah, I know. We'll get into this next time, because they made movies that are about what if this cycle happened again and things were different. They literally did that. So there is stuff there, and then that still isn't over, so we don't even know where that's going to land. So I don't know. I always, like, in my assumption, I was always like, I always thought this was like the bad end, but maybe this will just be how the other one ends as well.
Yeah.
Who can say?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bad movie.
Yep. I hate it. I can't. So the main break in me and Jackson's opinion is I can't divorce this from the show, and Jackson has to.
I can't even, like, having this conversation. I'm like, I can't disagree with any of these things. Like, these are all true, and I think them as well. How can I like this? I don't think. I guess my only defense is that I don't think either is as coherent as this. As you're saying, I don't think it has a coherent worldview. I think its worldview changes based on how depressed it is at any given moment.
Yeah, sure. As someone like reading the show, I'm going to like take it like just saying the creator is inconstant and thus we can never say anything about the show doesn't help me at all. As someone who's trying to be a critic.
I'm saying that the best defense you can make is that it's incoherent.
Yes,
it's literally the words that I said. Like that's not good.
But like
platform.
It's two visions of lucidity. Is maybe the depressed boy should get over himself, and abuse is good and natural.
We will get into this next time, because a little preview. I thought the first two Evangelion rebuild movies were like this incredible like examination of these things, and then I got to the third one and was like, oh, no, it is not. It does not realize these things at all, does it? So we'll see you next time. Because when I rewatched this recently, I thought the show was good. I enjoyed myself. Hated this movie, and then the first two rebuilds were like shocking to me in what they were and the things they like seemed to understand about what Eva was. That kind of fell apart in the third one. This is my preview for my takes on that, and we'll like why this isn't even finished yet for me. God.
Yep.
We've got a bunch of emails we should probably just rush through, because we've been here forever.
Yeah, no, we're not going to rush them. We're going to give them the time. We asked people so many times, and people send us so many emails that we're going to trade off. So I'm going to start with the crass one. We're going to go from the bottom up. Okay, so our friend Crass wrote in, everyone has their own personal, this is the worst thing in Neon Genesis Evangelion, but I would like to posit the canonical worst thing. Death and Rebirth, the recap movie from 1997 that's never discussed. So when I watched this the first time, I watched Death and Rebirth after the show and then went into End, because we didn't know. We just were handed all the DVDs and said, watch this. Having been subjected to Ava for the first time where you're like, what the fuck's going on? Death and Rebirth was really helpful.
Just like on Cliff Notes.
Yeah. Rewatching the first half of the movie twice was weird. And probably has a lot to do with why I think of Shinji fucking masturbating over Asuka as like my defining feature of Evangelion and why I don't like it. But there is the bit where they all play music, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the show needs more stuff like that. The show needs more moments where everything is okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you're wrong, Crass. We went into the worst stuff. That's what this podcast was about, but you wouldn't know this.
Yep.
All right, I got my next email. It is from Adam Pollock. It is, have you seen / have any thoughts on Insufficient Direction, the series created by Mayoko Anno, which is Anno's wife. I had not heard of this. I went and looked it up and read a couple of volumes. What it is a short like gag manga about being Anno's wife. That's literally what it is. It is like she is like it's all pretend in chibi form, and Anno is like called Director-kun, and it's just like short gag manga about their life together. It's bad. It's not a bad thing, but it makes me like Anno even less if that was possible. Because it's literally just a lot of like her being like, I'm gonna be a good otaku wife, and Anna being like, today we're gonna watch this this thing that matters. I get up at 7 every Sunday to watch the current Sentai show. Like, it's just that window into his life where he's just quoting Gundam all the time. The idea that he hates weebs is hilarious. Like, that he hates otaku is incredible. Because it's so clearly not true. He just is one. But that idea comes up a lot, that he's like really critical of the people who can't understand his work because of anime culture is bad. That is just fundamentally untrue. Is my main takeaway from that. Okay. She's good at art. I don't know. I might read more of her manga.
Okay.
That's what I would say also.
We have an email from Josh, which was, you have a gun to your head and you're forced to write a novel-length fanfic about Ava. Which character or subject would you focus on?
I mean, we both would choose the same thing, right?
I mean, I'd choose the adults when they were in college in like 2002.
Yeah, like it's one of the best parts of that show, and they don't explore it enough.
We already know that Evangelion lifted a lot of its themes and concepts from its predecessors, but is there any lesson or concept that you wish Evangelion had learned from its predecessors that they didn't? Speaking of like other mech shows, I guess.
I mean, all we really have to tie it to is like Gundam, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. What do you wish Ava took from Gundam that it did not?
This is very damning to be better about women.
God. Yeah.
I think about how shitty Eva is to women and how shitty Gundam is to women, but like there is no space in Eva for someone like Rekuwa. Like, it literally doesn't exist. Like, a woman who sucks, but on her own terms from her own experiences is, like, inconceivable to this show. Yeah.
I would say, like, I think Gundam is much better about showing that the universe does not, in fact, revolve around its protagonist, even though sometimes the protagonists think that that's true. And I wish Ava was a little less in Shinji's head all the time. I wish there was more other people, which I guess is basically what you're saying.
Yes, but I would disagree with that in the sense of, like, I actually like that it ties its main character's psychology to the state of the world. I think that's fine. I think you can do that well. Like, just literally talking about Final Fantasy X, I think that is a thing that takes that theme and runs with it a bit better in terms of, like, what if the entire fate of the universe depended on a sad boy's brain? You can do that better than Eva does.
Yep. And part 3 of the question, which of the multitude of Evangelion endings and non-endings do you feel in your heart is the true ending?
None of them.
So, the thing we didn't bring up, which I truly believe about Evangelion, is that if Shinji had just gotten on that train in, like, episode 3 or 4 and left, the exact same show would have happened, basically. Shinji just wouldn't have been there for it. So, why don't we just, none of this matters? And the ending is that instrumentality was always going to happen, and all of this is just people casting about with some bullshit.
I mean, that is fundamentally true. There are like 4 different cycles of this playing out.
Yep.
There's the show's End of Evangelion, there's the manga, there's rebuilds. There's and they are all treated as like, what if this happened again? So yeah, I don't know. None of them. Like, my favorite quote unquote ending is in the middle of the rebuild movies. So that's how fucked I am.
Yeah, I'm going to take the next one. Sebastian wrote in asking about End of Evangelion and Evangelion in the context of Twin Peaks. Like, they wanted answers in kind of the way they kind of want Twin Peaks answers, and they're curious about the ways in which Ava doesn't give answers the way Twin Peaks doesn't give answers. If you want to go to the Evangelion wiki, what's the name of that site, Jackson?
It's Eva Geeks, I think it is.
Yeah, you can find answers. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want them. But they exist. Concrete answers for everything that happens in Evangelion do exist, and they are incomprehensible because they're from the lore of a video game, mostly.
But also they line up exactly with, like, offhanded lines in End of Evangelion that don't make sense. So like they are true. Like someone out there wrote them out.
No, they're true, but much in the way you don't want to read the Mark Frost like book about Twin Peaks, you don't want these answers about Evangelion.
But the fact that they were there at all is insane, considering that I still don't know what Saleh actually wants. Like, the things you would think that they would have the answers about, like, you know, like, oh, God. Yeah, there are answers, they're all bad.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Moon.
Yeah. Do you want to do the answer to the question from Dorian?
Okay, this is Dorian's question. So here's the thing. I understand on some level that there's a lot of gross stuff in Eva, a lot of things that would normally make me decide to stop watching, but I can't. Yeah, I know, we probably should, but I feel you. Eva was really important to me in high school. Watching a show about depressed teens when I was a depressed teen made me feel, like, real. The show had seemed to take these problems seriously. It made the work of living with depression to a big interstellar battle with impossibly high stakes, which felt true. Even though it was just me and my feelings, seeing these characters grow and learn and suffer in the ways that I had suffered really helped me. That's probably why I was so defensive about Shinji in certain ways. That's in brackets to be like, not in the ways where he masturbates over a woman. It's kind of stupid, but I can't forget how the show was there for me, Dorian. Big same, I understand. M's free. M doesn't have any of this baggage.
So all of that is fine. I'm not here to say, like, people shouldn't like Eva. Well, I am kind of like, people should be critical of the things Eva does. If you identify with Shinji, that's not the end of the world. It's fine. Especially, there's a lot of Shinji, especially in the show when you discount End of Eva, that is very relatable, and most of it isn't even that bad outside of the stuff Anno like puts him in the context of the rest of the characters. Like, Shinji isn't responsible for the fact that Anno doesn't care about women, right?
Yes, no, yeah, and like I don't know. I'm about to say a thing.
Okay.
Being an Eva fan is not unlike being a Harry Potter fan.
So I was going to say, before you do anything, in the immortal words of Streetcast, which is a great podcast at Streetcast called Streaking Shack, watch another show and read another book, please. Yeah. There are many good pieces of media about living with depression, and I urge you to find them and find media that you can also identify with that doesn't need you to like look past a lot of really bad gender politics you object to. You can still like Shinji forever, but please also reach out and find new things.
Yep. The thing I would say is that, like, Evangelion is very unique and like incredibly good at this stuff in the context of I just watch shonen anime. Like, it is revolutionary, but even like with all the asterisks, if your context is very low, go read some books. That's what I've done. Like, there's a lot out there that will make you feel a lot better. And Eva doesn't then have to mean that much. Like, there is so much that you can pull from, and you can just take what you need and then be like, fuck this guy, and move on. Which is kind of what I'm trying to do.
Yep. Okay, we have another email from Crass here. So, what is the worst parent dynamic in the series? We get a list of options. Shinji and Gendo and Yui, Asuka and her parents, Ritsuko and her mom, Misato and Kaji, which fucking... that is a brutal question to ask there.
That's so mean.
The pilots and Misato / Kaji, and us and Anno, which no, absolutely not. I reject that one on principle.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be an Eva fan for that to count. You have rejected the bullshit. You are the judo of Eva.
If you want to read Misato and Kaji that way, it almost is that one, but it's probably Ritsuko and her mom in the ways it plays out in End of Eva.
Unquestionably Ritsuko. Kaji dying before the stuff goes real bad is helpful for him. He exists as he exists as Kaji, and then it like in the period where he's alive and the show is about their relationship, he isn't like a substitute for his dad. That bullshit's all inside Misato's head, and he's like there and letting her work through it.
Yes, in a show full of like weird gross stuff, Kaji is like a really steady like stand-up guy in the show. It's really strange.
Kaji's great.
Yep.
There's a rebuild scene with Kaji that I'm interested for you to get to, that you'll be like, what the fuck? But aside from that, Kaji's pretty good.
Okay.
And what is his other crass question? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no, it was just a PS.
PS, I asked... Oh, okay, yes. Oh, crass. Crass says, I'm just going to call out Crass because Crass is a good friend. I asked this because Eva, the first thing I remember that showing me that my parents were as messed up as mine were, and seeing that there is some hope for happiness outside of your family was a big influence on Team Me before I realized that's what I was responding to. Eva...
Where's the... Crass, could you write in and explain what happiness you're talking about? Because I literally don't know what you're talking about at all.
The world ends as they just repeat the same mistakes forever and nothing changes. Okay, well, thanks, Crass.
I'm all right ribbing Crass a little bit, so...
Oh, no, we love... Everyone else we're going to be nice to, but Crass is our good friend, so if you can't be mean to Crass, we can. Can I just, like... director's editor's note here and say, because we're reading these emails in Gmail, and Gmail now has like automatic
They're so good. This is just an important true bit, but it's still true and good.
there's just an automatic like short one-word BioWare dialogue tree responses. Someone will be like, I thought this about Ava, but I didn't like when he masturbated over the woman, and then like things are cool, I'll check it out, glad you enjoyed it, thanks for sharing. Oh, it's so funny. All right, Hunter's next.
Yes.
Hey, Em and Jackson, I'll just get right to it. I watched Eva when I was 16, which is probably the best age to watch it. It seemed really complicated in ways I didn't get. The fights were cool. Shinji was the first time I ever saw a character that I could relate to, their depression in the same way I could relate to mine, and it helped me come to realize that I had it. The show really helped me out and was life-changing. I don't think this is an uncommon story. I feel the need to rewatch Eva sometime soon. It's been 6 years, and hopefully I've changed a little bit. I'm still depressed and all, but who knows what I forgot about the show. I'm afraid to revisit the show that meant a lot to me. I'll get to it probably sometimes when 3.0 plus 1.0 is real, so never. That was me. I was editorializing there. It will be real, unfortunately. The question I'm trying to get to, though, is what piece of media meant a lot to you that you won't revisit, or what's a piece of media that meant a lot to you that you won't revisit, or if one doesn't work, what's a piece of media that you did revisit that meant a lot to you, and how did your feelings change when revisiting? Thanks for the podcast. As always, Hunter. Eva?
So, as much as I'm like, I never rewatched stuff, I feel like I've revisited almost everything I was really into as like a teen at this point.
You really have.
Yeah. Some of it holds up, some of it less so.
It's went well for like quite a few things. Like, you love Dragon Ball.
So the thing is, the things I like about Dragon Ball are basically the opposite of the things I liked about Dragon Ball when I was 16.
Well, yeah.
And I hope that that's true for a lot of, like, if you revisit Ava, if you listen to this, if you listen to all this, you're like, holy shit, what was this? Maybe I'll never look at Ava again. If you still feel the urge to revisit Ava, I recommend doing it with this stuff in mind and still understanding that you can relate to Shinji. And there's good stuff with Shinji in the show specifically. If you identify with End of Eva Shinji, maybe reflect on that a
bit. Maybe have a little look inward.
But I think it's fine to revisit media and just say it doesn't work. We are on the cusp every month of looking at Star Trek and being too leftist to enjoy it, I feel like sometimes.
I was really worried that'll never happen, but
no, that's because we really like Star Trek when it's on its bullshit and not when it's trying to be profound and important.
But also, like, there's been a large leftist fandom build up around Star Trek.
That's true.
Like, these kind of, like, in the same way there is around Gundam. Like, Gundam is more explicitly leftist than Star Trek, I would say.
Yes.
But
I think you made fun of me for this in SOS's recording, Jackson.
Yeah, no, I know. I have. It took me a while to realize that as well, because watching, especially 00789, I'm like, this stuff must have been like brought in by the fandom in a way that isn't as present in the show. But going on, I'm like, no, it's there. And just like there are avenues and communities and like worldviews that give these things context, right? Like, one of the biggest problem with Eva is that what it is a show, an anime from the 90s that is extremely one of those, extremely horny nonsense bullshit, but it is treated like it's fucking Twin Peaks. Like, people will literally bring up End of Eva and Twin Peaks in the same conversation.
I mean, I also want to point out that Twin Peaks is not free of a lot of really important critiques of, especially gender and abuse stuff, which Twin Peaks, like the show, often handles really poorly.
Sure, but I mean, like people will bring up Anno as like, he's just like a David Lynch type thing.
Yeah, that's the only way in which I think that's even a reasonable argument is they both do things that can be confusing because there's a lot of like abstract imagery in them sometimes.
So like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would always I tend to revisit stuff. I like revisiting stuff. I like putting stuff in new contexts. Sometimes it goes badly when a thing was important for me and I have to like see it as its truth.
I always feel kind of like, I'm always like, usually I find something that I appreciate in it. And then I'm like, oh, look at how I've changed as a person. I have grown. That's good.
Yeah. For sure. Like, I don't know. Like, I rewatched Code Geass recently, and I thought that was going to be just a garbage disaster, and it kind of is. But there's still a lot like that for a really bad horny teen anime from like the 2007.
But being able to identify things that did appeal to you, but understand how your like politics and worldview and philosophies have evolved past the thing that you're watching,
Yes.
is like a great way to realize how far you've come as a person.
It is very good. I am pro rewatching. I can't think of anything that I'm too scared to rewatch.
Yeah, I also don't think I have any of those.
Like, I'm always excited to put things in the context of who I am now rather than who I used to be.
Yep.
So that's that.
Okay, then
Couple
we
more
have Ross's question.
Yes.
Sadness and emptiness, Evangelion means an incredible amount to me. Shinji's anxiety and insecurities helped me discover a lot about myself at a difficult time, and he's one of my favorite animal characters of all time. To me, his relationships are what make the show, and every character event works because of how they relate to Shinji. How some people can like the show without liking Shinji is so beyond me. Anyway, to this day, the music makes my stomach sink. Koru is the best. Him and Shinji deserve happiness. Masato is everything. The robot and angel designs are incredible. The elevator scene is amazing. Yes, it is. It's very good. I love the show. It has become a wildly merchandise monster. And while that should annoy me, it doesn't. I have a cat called Shinji, and he's my best friend. That's sweet.
Aw.
End of Eva is an odd one. I get how production time and pressure hit it in major ways, and I don't think you can separate it from that. However, I like it regardless. It goes beyond reason at points, and I do believe some of the moments that are there simply because it looks striking. I love the live action shots. Asuka fighting the mass-produced Evas is absolutely choice animation. I can understand why the whole thing has a negative reaction, but I don't agree. And the death threats are a whole thing. We didn't really mention those.
No.
Ano got death threats for the end of the show.
Yes.
Because people weren't happy with it. I hope they were happy with the movie they got instead. So questions. Do you have a favorite angel? Would you change anything about the series? I think we answered that one. Do you plan to have you watched the Rebuild movies or read the manga? I can't wait to love whatever horrendous mess Rebuild movie 4 is. I hope this wasn't too rambly and was helpful for the podcast. You know, it wasn't bad. So that's it. What's your favorite angel, Jackson? We'll tackle that first.
What is my favorite angel? I don't know. Like, I can't really separate the angels from the episodes about the angels. Like the one that drops its entire self and they have to catch it, probably.
The one that I like kind of divorced from the episode, because I don't remember the episode being particularly like that important, was the one that's like a big ring.
Yes. That episode's not actually that, because that's one of the late ones. That's the one that's when Rey dies.
Yeah. But I do like that it's just a big ring. I like how abstract the angels are as like geometric shapes with eyes all over them. Mm-hmm. As for the rest of it, what was I going to say? I think it's interesting. I had a thing. Do you want to respond to some of this stuff, Jackson?
Yeah. We talked about what we changed. I have read both the Rebuild, which we'll get to, and the manga I've also read. I don't really remember the manga. The manga is really interesting, especially the end of it, because it does End of Eva, but it does it with the themes of 25, 26. Like, it's a happy ending.
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
You're not going to read the manga, are you? You were like...
I have a lot of manga to read, but I admit that I'm a little tempted. I don't know if I'm ever going to, though.
Well, let me know when you make the decision, because there's a panel I need to show you if and when.
Okay.
There's one panel in all 15 volumes that you need to see. And everyone will know what I'm talking about. I don't care. But okay, well, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you later.
So the one thing I did want to talk about is this line, how could people like the show without liking Shinji? Like Shinji getting the damn robot and shut up Shinji are like weird memes around this show that we never really talked about, because some people like the show and think Shinji's an obnoxious child, and I get it, especially if you're like someone who doesn't deal with depression. I think it's an unfair, generous read, but also I feel like if you're just like watching this anime like divorced from other anime, it'd be very easy to be like, this is a cool robot show, and then weird random shit happens at the end. It's crazy. The way people sometimes do with media that can be like abstract or surreal. Mm-hmm. I think that's like a relatively like narrow read of the show that I don't like, but I get why people would see it. Like, if this is like the second anime you watch after like Cowboy Bebop, I could see why that's your reaction to Evangelion.
Yeah, I guess that is a fairly common reaction, especially among like older, like the memes about the show back when it was like a thing that people watched and it was new and hadn't had the culture built up around it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, relating to Shinji is the show. If there's nothing there, then you don't like the show. But I guess I could see it on the surface level. I don't like there are better. You could just watch anime that looks good.
Yeah, but if you're like, I don't really know anime. I maybe caught some stuff on Toonami. Like, I like Cowboy Bebop. What's next? Like, people, at least when this show was in print and like around and capable of being watched, people would point at Ava's the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay, I can see how that would go.
Yeah.
The elevator scene is good.
Yeah, the elevator scene's great.
Elevator scene and that hold is so much better than the hold with the Kawaru with the like arm.
Yes, the Kawaru one feels excessive. The elevator one doesn't even feel that long to me. Like, watching it again, I'm like, oh, right, this is the scene people are like talk about. It doesn't feel that long. Like, people need to watch some movies. It's my reaction to that.
And the reason it's good is because the Kawaru thing, like, is a 52-second pause and then he gets crushed. Whereas the elevator thing is a big pause, but then like when they start moving, it's not like big. It's actually like one of the more subtle scenes of the show.
Yeah, like it feels natural that those characters would sit in that moment and then Asuka would be mad.
Yep. Yeah, God. Good scene.
Yep.
Okay. Only got a couple more emails left. But we have a lot because we really made the call out. And I don't think any people emailing in knew how down we would be on End of Eva specifically. We got one from Ethan here. Evangelion leans heavily on Christian imagery and iconography. Did any of you get anything out of that? Is there a reading by which the use of angels, the spirit of Longinus, the cross, the crucifixion actually become a coherent statement about or from the perspective of Christianity? I loved this show when I discovered it, and I was at one point determined to decipher the themes this imagery pointed towards. Ah, this poor child. What do these things symbolize? What do these things symbolize? The spirit of Longinus was used to stab Jesus in the side. Does this mean that regarding its use in the show, when Shinji's mecha is carried in a suspiciously cross-shaped pose by helicopters, is that a reflection of his personal sacrifice to benefit humanity every mission? What's with this bit about the bit of freedom of knowledge? You don't want to know the answer to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
You do not want to know the answer to that. My conclusion ended up being that the show slatters around Gnostic Christian imagery without meaning. It's the rule of cool stuff, easy shortcuts to seem profound, but those bits never seem to contribute a larger point. But you're the experts. Did you find thematic importance to the Christian-themed content? If yes, what? If no, how does that leave you feeling about the way the show just adds a layer of God-themed paint over everything? Some of the imagery is good to look at, but yeah, it's meaningless.
So when the first I think it's the angel causes like a cross-shaped beam in like episode 2 or 1 or 2 or whatever.
Yes.
It fires a beam, turns into a giant cross. Like it feels impactful and important in the way that I feel like Anno desperately really wants to make you think Eva is important and deep. I don't think it does that, like it carries that through well. I would love the show that like had a point with all this imagery. I think it would be really interesting. It'd probably also be a damn mess, but I'd be really interested to see what that is. I think you'd need like an actual theologian consulting on the show to make that work at all.
You're describing Devilman.
Yeah, I on some level I am describing Devilman Crybaby, but which I wrote about for the most recent Patreon letter, probably.
Yes.
Yes. So if you subscribe to that level, check that out, I guess. It's just a mess. It's just like the way in which all sorts of gods litter JRPGs. Like that's really all it is. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it detracts from the show necessarily. It does make me wish that like they explored that road not taken, where like I think it's cool that Sele talks about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I really wish that meant something.
Yeah, like the fact that it doesn't end up like I like the fact that it all kind of comes down to the insides of everyone's brains and everyone like their own internal struggle and everything. The problem is the show leans really hard on its like mysteries and symbolism and wants you to like care about that going in and doesn't have any payoff for any of it.
I will say that the Spear of Longinus is great. I like it as a MacGuffin in things that want to sound more profound than they are. It also shows up in Constantine, I think. is where the Lance of Longinus is a big deal. It's in the background of Hellboy 1.
The Spirit of Longinus is one of the only cooler bits because it like shows up under a wrap in one episode.
Yeah. I mean, the versions of those movies don't look anything like this, obviously. This weird transforming metal giant red spear is entirely an Eva thing.
That bit where Ray javelins it into space is cool.
Yes, it's very cool.
That is incredibly cool. But then the bit where they all sit around and talk going, oh, we've lost the spear, guys. That's cool.
That's like 3 episodes where they just keep cutting back to it floating in space.
And you're meant to be like, oh, we don't have the spear. What does that mean? And then you don't find out until the movie and it's meaningless. Oh.
Yep.
Okay. How many? We only got one
2
more,
more.
I think. 2 more? There's 2 more. Oh, right, because we have someone's burner email.
Yeah.
Thank you to
Rick emails in, I find it very difficult to put my feelings on Ava into words. It's a series I enjoy a great deal, but these days what it comes back to most is that I find the series, and especially End of Ava, an incredibly cathartic experience, and at this point I watch End at least once a year. I would like, if you want to come listen to this and write back in, and check your opinions about End of Ava against mine, I'd actually like to just talk to you about that because I'm really interested. I like not even like a dunking because you know what we feel like. We obviously disagree on that, but I want to know what you get out of it.
We've gone like really hard against that movie and like what its themes are, but I can't even see the version where End of Eva has a catharsis for anyone in my head. So if that like I know that's a lot of people. So if that's you, please like describe to me what it is in that movie that gets you. Yeah,
we can correspond about that because I do want to know.
I do want to know.
I do have a question, and it is the eternal question you may have already covered. We actually did not. Who killed Kaji? And then they thank us for these bonus episodes. We like doing them. We really want more people to like give us anime to watch because honestly, we're gonna do End of Eva, but we're probably not gonna do one of these on our own for a while now.
Yeah, I mean that's because we got Discovery's coming back.
Yeah, but also like we like me and Jackson don't watch the same things very often.
No, but I like that I don't know. I enjoy having this as a thing.
Yeah.
I assume these will happen again, similarly to Tatami Galaxy when one of us watches something and the other one is like, let's do that. That's a thing I want to join you with.
Yeah. So who killed Kaji?
No one.
I thought it was Masato when that episode happened, and then I asked you about it, and you're like, no, it can't be Masato, and it's probably not Masato.
She gets a phone call. Like, there's no way it's Masato.
Well, she could get that phone call before she goes and kills him and didn't see it until she came home.
No, because she's locked in a room when he's killed.
Yeah, but then they also like let her out with they give her a gun, and then at the end of that episode, Kaji's killed. Masato is given a gun and then Kaji's killed, but also someone is like, she asks like something nebulous, like, what about the other one? And they're like, someone will take care of it. And then it shows Kaji being killed. So that to me implies someone else did it, obviously, but you could probably read it as Masato doing it. I don't think that's right, but if you want that to be your thing, I think that's fine. I think Masato's actions in the rest of the show don't disagree with that being a thing she did.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I just think it's
Masato is absolutely the person who would do the order to kill the person she loves and then mope and listen to their last message over and over again.
Oh, she might be, but that makes me like her less.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Jackson. I think that's very in character.
I get that. I just think it's like, I don't know. Seile killed him. Like, he rescued Fuyutsuki, and then Fuyutsuki's like, they'll kill you for this.
Yeah, and they did.
And then they did. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I assume it's just a random Seile person. There's no. I think they should have literally just sewn a guy with the Seile logo killing him. There's no reason to be like abstract about that. It doesn't add anything. There's no answer there. Eva really needs to learn that it can just show a thing happening on the face of it.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, one more email. This is from an anonymous email, just someone's burner account. So whoever you are, we don't know. Would these exact characters in this narrative work in another setting? I have a tough time imagining the fandom forgiving Shinji as much as they do if the series was based in anything other than like a near-future war show with giant mecha and teens. Would these choices made by many of the cast be as forgivable by the fandom if this was a more far-flung future or alternate history or based on fantasy magic instead? The art style of the series makes a lot of the themes, like isolation, easier to digest as well. We see grand scenes that are vibrant and striking but incredibly empty and hollow. How much does style matter for telling the story? Thank you.
Anime fans will excuse gross bullshit in all sorts of genres, is my answer to this.
Yeah, I think that like this could be like, I don't know, everyone loves Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like any kind of genre distance works for this stuff, right? Like you put things in any context and people will be forgiving of it.
Yeah.
And the specific awfulness that Evangelion has in its worst moments are like reflective of a grossness inherent to a lot of society. It's not like it's doing anything like... I know people like Kawaru's there, but it's not like the show's like subversive about like the way society thinks about queerness or women or anything. Like it's just enacting the worst versions of it.
And like, I could think of other anime that are like that people excuse with problematic elements, and like you could say, oh, they're like these still are shows with teens fighting against a society. But name me an anime that's not about teens fighting against a society, please.
please, seriously, please, if you would,
because that's just anime. And yeah, I don't think the setting honestly has that much to do with it, other than I think the setting gets people in the door because it's a really evocative thing.
I think the setting gets people in the door. I actually think they don't do very much with the setting. When I think of how much of Gundam is defined by half the population died, and this has the same premise, and I don't feel the grand apocalypse in the same way here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, it ends up actually just feeling more confusing. Like there's moments, especially in the flashback episode, where like, oh look, Tokyo's underwater now, and they like know it's there. But like, considering Gundam is a show that is the W79 is defined by this trauma, and it permeates every episode.
But also, there's like a ton of like threads in Evangelion about like budgetary disputes, which don't make sense 15 years after the apocalypse. If you want that stuff in a way that works, like go watch Shin Godzilla, where it makes sense that people are like having those like bureaucracy problems because the problem just happened and is like currently ongoing, and that makes sense to me more than it does in Eva.
Yeah, putting a lot of the stuff into Shin Godzilla, like the context for that works a lot better.
Yep.
And in terms of like the art style, like it looks good. The show looks good when it is not being on its horny bullshit. Like the shots of Shinji like on the train, the shots of Shinji walking around Tokyo 3, like
I can't believe the show went out of its way to like justify endless summer so they could have sunsets and cicadas by like making Second Impact cause endless summer.
Yeah, they sure did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like the show looks really good when it's not, drawing a woman, right?
Yeah. You know what would make me happy about Eva? If there was an episode where everyone was in winter fashion, because winter fashion anime is always the best anime.
Word. I mean, you remember this is why I'm mad about the reboot movies. You've seen that thing that never happened, right?
Yes.
The hiking gear Gendo.
Yes.
In one of the reboots, there was a hiking gear Gendo promo image, and it never happens in the actual movie. It's like it ended up being like cut concept, but they did all get a hiking gear at one point.
But that's our last question.
That's our last question. That is it. We've done 2 hours of this.
I hope everyone enjoyed. If you like Eva a lot, this was not meant as a personal attack. It was only a personal attack on Jackson, really.
No, I actually feel fine. I was very worried about this and anxious going in, but I feel like over the last few weeks, because I wasn't going to rewatch the entire show, but you hated it. Not hated, that's the wrong one, but like you were like, oh, this thing is so gross in ways that like, okay, I need to like really rewatch it, have everything in my head, and I feel pretty solid with how I feel about Eva, which is that there's a lot I like about it. End of Eva was one of the worst things ever made, like that's just a true thing, and I have to like deal with that. It's not unlike being a Harry Potter fan.
Yeah. For me, it's like my main, like, I think Ava sucks, but my main reaction is a like all-encompassing apathy. There's so much media in the world. I don't care about fucking dumbass men espousing their toxic worldview. Like, I can just watch anything else, and that's what I normally do. So for me, it was hard to build up the enthusiasm to do this, but I'm glad that I could just put it all out there, how I feel about Ava. Some stuff works. I think it all adds up to something really monstrous, and I mostly just don't care. But I understand that it means a lot to a lot of people. I think people who go around advocating it as the best anime or like a postmodern masterpiece are wrong and should probably revisit the show and think about some of the stuff that we've brought up if you're like hearing this and think that about Evangelion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
I don't even think Evangelion is like postmodern to begin with. So.
I don't understand what postmodern means in the context of people saying postmodern on Twitter, other than it has meta elements.
Yeah,
like I don't understand what is postmodern about End of Eva. Like, yes, it has live action shots of a cinema, but that's babies first. Like, that's cheating. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I get if that counts, then yes, but come on.
Yep. That's all I've got. This has been a good podcast. I hope you've enjoyed. There will be a Rebuild one sometime, but I don't know.
That's the one I'm most curious / nervous about, because Rebuild 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. So
let's see if we can dissuade you from that. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll agree with you. I don't think I will, but who knows?
One, no. There's more, like a more modern anime at start, like got more horny bullshit. But two, it is, what if the movie was the good episodes of the show?
Yeah, that sounds great. I like those episodes. So
I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think you'll enjoy it as much as me, but I think you'll understand. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for listening. We don't have no idea when another one of these will be. We don't have one scheduled.
If you want to make one of these happen more frequently, you can always support us at patreon.com/normalmapping. Send us your best anime to watch or your worst anime to watch, and you can even be on the episode if you want.
It's true. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Down. I've been a fool to myself. I thought that I could live for no one else. But now, through all the hurt and pain, it's time for me to respect the ones you love me more than anything. So with sadness in my heart, feel the best thing I could do. So bad, what once was happy now is sad. I'll never love again, my world is ending. I wish that I could turn back time, 'cause now the guilt is all mine. Can't live without the trust from those you love. I know we can't forget the past. You can't forget love and pride. Because of that, it's killing me inside. It all returns to nothing. It all comes tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down. It all returns to nothing. I just keep letting me down, letting me down, letting me down. In my heart of hearts, I know that I could never love again. I've lost everything, everything, everything that matters to me matters in this world. I wish that I could turn back time, 'cause now the guilt is all mine. Can't live without the trust from those you love. I know we can't forget the past. You can't forget love and pride. Because of that, it's killing me